Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Pleased today to be joined by Volker Ballueder. Great to have you here today, Volker.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for having me. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to finding out more about the work that you do and what that journey's been like. But to kick us off, do you want to give people the 60-second intro, the overview of you, your business, and what it does?
Yeah, 60 seconds is never enough, but in a nutshell, as you would say. So I've been working in sales for over 20 years, and I now run my own consultancy, essentially, working as a sales consultant and sales coach. And I also am in the process of launching a second brand, purely focusing on executive coaching and leadership development, which kind of goes in line with what I've been doing for the last 10 years in terms of coaching and
Yeah,
coaching salespeople as well. So just moving more into a generic leadership coaching area now as well.
awesome.
That's
No,
60
sounds good, and yeah, definitely look forward to getting into more detail about what that entails, how you work with clients, etc. But
Yeah.
just to kind of wind things back before that, you mentioned some pretty significant sales experience, but why set up your own consulting business and coaching business in the first place?
Yeah.
What led to that?
If I say fairly simple, actually. If I say I traditionally worked in an industry, advertising technology, where I took, I think in total 7 redundancies. I need to recount at some point to make sure it was 7. Maybe it was only 6. I don't know. But from an early part in my career, I took redundancy. And usually, if I say American companies, nothing against our American friends that wanted to have a footprint in Europe, bought the technology and the companies in Europe, kept me on for a year, and then decided to cut costs and got rid of me.
Yeah,
And that happened a few times. Never, unfortunately, with a big exit. So I missed out on some of the big cash outs that a lot of people got in my industry.
yeah,
But on the other hand, if I say I hang around in the industry, a lot of my peers that went through similar scenarios, so that wasn't the only one. That they left the industry because they couldn't cope with it. And so it's a bit of a shame that I say that did happen. On the other hand, it led me to where I am today. So to answer your question, I eventually thought, going into companies, helping them to build a sales strategy, helping them to actually get some sales through the door, or to do the turnaround, which I've done as well. So go into companies, rebuild sales processes, rebuild sales teams,
yeah,
remotivated them in order for them to hit target. Um, I thought I can do that as a freelancer, right? Or fractional, as we now call it, or
yeah,
consultant, whichever label you want to give it. And I thought I can charge a lot more, right? And I don't end up having to justify myself if I leave after a year because, the project was finished. I can leave and then I can take
yeah,
on the new project. And that's how I eventually went in 2019. So just in time for the pandemic, I decided to do that. And originally I wanted to do a lot more coaching, but, ended up doing more consulting, do a lot of interim roles,
yeah.
which given COVID was the right way forward. And then transitioned more into fractional work and now, moving more into the coaching bit again.
Yeah, interesting. And what are the kind of the main differences between the types of like, consulting or fractional work that you do and the coaching work? Then is that different types of clients or just different ways of working with clients?
Both is the answer, I think. It's I'm I'm not a stickler for titles. I know some people are, so maybe that's a good way of starting. So I, for instance, do mentoring for fractionals and people that want to move into portfolio careers. Mentoring is more, if I say, advising, and I also, if I say, advise startups, in terms
Yeah,
of go-to-market sales strategies. And that could be early stage, it could be later stage, but I'm, maybe doing a day a month, sometimes 2 days a month. And if I say mentoring, advising, and then coaching, where you then work with the individual and improves the individual. So sometimes it can be quite blended, right? So I'm not going in and say, for instance, to founding CEO, or today I coach you, or today I mentor you,
sure.
or today I advise you. It's essentially, if I say the underlying ambition I have is I want to help and support the person I work with.
Yeah,
as a company I work with, and then ultimately as a person I'm dealing with day to day. That's my ambition. And the reason I'm moving more into coaching is because that's an area I identified I really enjoy. So I do a lot of sales coaching, anywhere from if I say SDRs all the way to VP and CRO level.
yeah,
And I enjoy working with those individuals. And whilst I'm doing that from a sales perspective, wearing my sales hat, I often do that, if I say, from a life and personal perspective. Things like work-life balance, things like productivity, and that all kind of comes together if I just label it as coaching rather than just sales coaching.
I see.
And as it always is with positioning, right? I mean, there's so many ways you can skin a cat essentially, right?
Yeah, of course.
Whether I call it coaching with added benefits of sales coaching or sales coaching with benefits of executive coaching.
Yeah,
But my long-term ambition is moving more into leadership development as well. So really helping the individual, if I say rather than if I say the organization. Whilst I continue doing what I'm doing now in terms of helping organizations to build sales teams, sales structures, essentially repeatable revenue processes.
I see. So it sounds like quite an evolution, really, then, of the people that you want to help and how you help them, so that you're kind of covering more aspects of their life, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you I mean, it's a labeling. At the end of the day, it's a labeling, to be honest. Because I wouldn't go in and do sales coaching and then someone goes, "Oh, how can I improve my productivity?" And go like, "Oh no, wait a second, you have to buy my different product." Right?
Yeah,
And that's what and in therapy, I'm also training to be a therapist. In therapy, we call it person centered. Right? Essentially I work very person centered. But if you go to the wider industry, and say, "Oh, I'm working person centered as an advisor, mentor, or coach," people go
yeah,
like, "What the fuck are you doing?" I don't know how
yeah,
else
yeah,
to say on here, right? So, and that's where the executive coaching hat comes in, and the leadership development hat comes in, because that's something people can grasp. They can look at the concept. Um, and that's why you use labels like mentoring, you use labels like advisory or consultancy, and that's why I, to be honest, prefer sales consultancy over fractional
yeah,
CRO, for instance, because with fractional, although I think I was one of the first in the UK to use it, after Scalewise introduced it, so they were definitely the first. I
yeah,
always think um, a lot of people still go like, fractional? What is that? Interim people get, right? It's like, oh yeah,
yeah,
you do maternity cover, you do an interim role, you do it 5 days a week, you might be on PAYE, you might not be on PAYE. Fractional people don't get, but if you say you're a consultant, freelancer, people go like, oh yeah, you just come in and do a project. And like, yeah, that's what I do. I just help you with sales. That's all I do.
yeah. No, I think labeling is super important, as you say, and I think, yeah, I agree with what you said about interim. People know that's like a temporary thing designed to cover a specific scenario, and consulting is there to solve a particular problem or set of problems. I think
Yeah,
for me, fractional is growing in popularity, but I think people still don't quite know what it is. And I think by definition, it sounds like you're getting, which you are, you're getting part of something rather than
yeah.
a complete something. And I'm not sure that's what people really truly want, is a partial solution, even though that's not quite what's on offer. But that's what can be implied from that term, I think.
But essentially that's what you get, right? You get a certain days, a month off someone because you can't get the whole person,
Yeah,
and I've often been in the position where companies went, oh, it's great working with you. Would you come in full time? And I go like, that's not really what I do, right? And
yeah,
you know, and it's if I say it's fine to ask, never say never, right? If I find the right company and they offer me a nice package, right? Why wouldn't I, right?
yeah,
But for the last 5 years, I enjoy the variety. I enjoy the portfolio of things that I'm doing, that I'm interested in. I mean, as we just discussed before we went live, right? I had a podcast for a long time. I wrote a book on the back of it. Now I have a new podcast. I put a lot of effort in, because again, it's about helping middle-aged men, something completely non-work related.
yeah,
But then again, it ties in with the leadership and executive coaching. So there are always elements that always tie in. But with a portfolio career, I can decide which companies I work with and which ones I don't want to work with. like literally before this podcast, I had a conversation with an early stage startup, pre-seed, who looking for an advisor. And an
Yeah.
advisor is the best way of describing what I can do for them. But am I more consultant? Am I a leadership coach to the founder? No, you choose your label. It's I'm helping
Yeah.
them. What I do.
No, absolutely. And I guess it sounds like there are so many different types of ways you do work with people and help people, yet at the same time, there's a lot of commonality between the different types of help and support, as you say, that kind of person-centered approach as well. When you're talking to clients or prospects, then how do you choose how to position yourself, how to present yourself to?
Yeah, good question. If I say it depends literally on the person I'm speaking to. So and what their needs are and
Yeah,
what they understand. I think that's important as well. So again, I can give you life examples. So I had a conversation this morning with a VC venture capital company, and they have an immediate need to help one of their portfolio companies to essentially come in and sell on their behalf.
yeah,
And they have limited budget. They and if I say it just doesn't work for me, I said to them, I said, because your limited budget, you might get, I don't know, let's say you get 6 or 10 days from me over 2 to 3 months, and you
yeah,
want to build a sales process, and you need to have people on the ground, and that's not me. It's also an industry I'm not overly familiar, so I don't familiar with, so I don't have like a black book of contacts where I could go like, oh yeah,
sure,
just call a couple of people up. What I could help them with would be more strategic, where I come in, work with the sales team they might hire, build out the sales process, the CRM process, look at marketing, look at, client success, and see how I can, overarching build a strategy and go to market strategy for them whilst they execute. And that's probably not what they're looking for that client. But then if I work on a VC level, or, if I say an investor level, what I can do, I can work across several companies. So obviously it would be a different budget pot, but
yeah,
I come in and parachute into different companies. So I can work with one company more, if I say, as a sales coach, and other companies more as an advisor, depending on which stage they're in, and whether that's, if I say, then I have the contract with the individual company or the VC. If I say, it doesn't matter. But that's why, if I say, I'm working or trying to work with a lot of VCs, because they have different needs. But they know that I can fulfill all of them depending what
yeah,
they need. So they might just go like, "Oh, Volker, I know the CEO over there. Just he needs a good person to just talk to, right? And just get things off his chest and her chest, and
yeah,
just if I say download a lot of things and need some advice." And then they might go like, "Oh, the sales team over there, they need, I don't know, they need a workshop on MedPick or enterprise selling," and then I can go in and do a workshop. And
yeah,
so I can wear different hats. So sometimes it works quite well to be able to fulfill different needs, right? If you have, like, if I say, an umbrella organization, like a VC or PE or investment fund.
yeah. And in instances like that, then it sounds like there must be a very high degree of trust built up, as well as very good awareness by companies like the VC and investors in terms of knowing what your capabilities are as well. How have you been able to build that up so that you are able to confidently represent yourself in situations like that and have the credibility to pull it off? Whereas if you were more or less experienced, you might not be able to present
Yeah.
so many kind of nuanced elements to your offering so well.
I mean, if I say like anything in sales, right? You build relationships, and relationships build trust, right? So it takes time to do that. So if I do a good job with one company, if I say people know about that, right, and they see my skill set, and then you can talk about other opportunities, and then you go in, and you do something slightly different. But it always takes time. So
Yeah,
it's not like someone just called me up and go like, "Oh, Volker, can you do all these 5 things? You're hired."
yeah,
It's as you say, right? Building up this trust and the connection over time. So people see I'm doing a good job. they go like, okay, that could be a fit over here. What else are you doing? So I spoke to a company yesterday, and they they weren't aware of some of the stuff I was doing. They said, "Oh, we never discussed that in details. I wasn't aware of that. I have you in mind next time." You know,
Yeah,
and it's just an iteration as you go along, because to your point, right? You don't want to just go to if I say go to someone, go like, oh, these are all the things I do, right? And
indeed.
then they go, oh, this is just too much, right? And that's why you pick and choose from the conversation what you think they need, and where they benefit most from, right? And that's where you start.
Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like certainly from your sales experience, then what you are able to utilize is an ability and your experience to diagnose what the best
Yeah,
offer is for a particular client in a specific situation so that you're not overwhelming them. As you say, you are presenting them with the best offer for where they are in their current
yeah.
thinking and their current problems.
It's solution based selling essentially, right? And
Yeah,
it's and as you say, right? If you know, if I say one client might call me a mentor and another one wants to call me a coach, and that's fine, right?
yeah,
For different terms for different people, and it is the selling, and I guess that gives me the advantage, right? Having worked in sales, being able to sell myself, because a lot of fractionals, um, haven't had the sales training, right? So they go
absolutely.
into fractional, and I actually there's another thing I did see, and again, from a portfolio perspective, that's something I could do last year. So I decided I launched a course on interim and fractional. So if you want to go from full-time employment into fractional, I recorded a course with a friend of mine who is a fractional CMO, and
Yeah,
we put I think it's 6 or 8 hour course together, just to get people started, right? Rather than, if I say, telling the same story, like, you have to look at your ICP, you have to look at how
yeah,
to position yourself. So we put a course together, because I think that helps people. Once I don't go out and be like, oh, by the way, I did this course, and yes, I can coach people to do that as well, but it's not my main focus. I just want to share my experience with as many people as possible.
yeah, absolutely. So I guess given all of those different facets and ways of helping people, then, and you mentioned other things you're involved with as well, the podcast you mentioned, as well as your training as a therapist. Then what's the direction for your businesses? Where do you
Yeah,
see that path taking you?
it's a good question. I have no idea.
Yeah,
which is the other beauty, right? If I say I don't have an idea, I do have a general direction of travel. So if you asked me today, and it's if I say it's still early day, I'm launching one brand, as I say, focusing on the individual more than, if I say, the B2B. But it will develop into B2B offerings, naturally, with leadership development and,
yeah,
and, and training courses. I can see that being the main bit I'm doing, whilst I continue doing advisory work, and do if I say, sales strategy work with companies. So I think that will always be, if I say, a mix of having advisory roles and more strategic roles, probably less hands-on roles in the next, I don't know, 5 years.
yeah,
Um, and topping that up with executive coaching and leadership development. So that's where I see that. But bringing, if I say, the more training you get, the more elements you can bring in. So if I look at my therapy training as an example, um, whilst I had several trainings in the past, but I'm, if I say, trained engineer by trade.
yeah,
So I did my engineering degree at university, then I did an MBA. I've done a master practitioner in NLP many years ago. I've done different coaching qualifications over the years. Having now the psychotherapy education, adds to, if I say, how you sell. It adds to how you approach people, how you mentor, and how you coach people, and all these things. It all comes together, and I don't want to exclude that. I don't know, in 3 years' time, I might do another course where I'm, I don't know, trained to be, I don't know, a nutritionist. I have no idea,
yeah,
but I've probably no interest in nutrition. I've big interest in food, but not necessarily nutrition. And and I might add another string to my bow, and that might completely carve out if I say, a new area that I might go down to. And the beauty again is when you're working for yourself and you have a portfolio career, you can try that out, right? So you can go in and say, what if, and I use that example now, if I combine nutrition with therapy and coaching and mentoring, and take that to startup founders and make them, I don't know, the slimmest and fittest startup founders ever.
Yeah.
Whatever the demand there might be, or not maybe not, right? Maybe there might not be a demand, but it's being playful in terms of what I can take to market. But I think I will always do advisory work and particularly the strategic work with companies in the tech and SaaS space, whilst I then start focusing more and more on individuals and then training needs across companies.
Sure. And what kind of comes first then? Is it the interest and that kind of playful exploration of different topics and then saying, oh, I wonder if I can take it here? Or are you looking or picking up on opportunities or gaps or unmet needs and then trying to fill it the other way around?
It's probably a combination of both, to be honest. When maybe a good example would be the podcast. So I ran a podcast for many years called Stories of Success. If I say, I don't want to say I got bored of it. It was a great podcast, long form, and I wrote a book, Principles for Success, on the back of it, and I really enjoyed that podcast. But after 4 years, it kind of came to an end where I'm like, I need to do something new, something different.
Yeah,
I found like I've learned enough, and I think I gave enough learning to the community who listened. So I actually started a podcast on fractionals, and decided not to pursue it because I was probably a bit ahead of the curve, to be honest. And I met my now co-host David for my Men Up Men Down podcast, and we started talking during lockdown. We got introduced by a common friend, and we said we want to do something. To say there's mental health crisis. There's a midlife crisis. We both around the 40 or a bit over 40 now. There's a need for people to talk, for men in particular to talk, and we identified that in 2020. We kind of jumped on the trend of mental health challenges. David having ADHD, there's more awareness now around ADHD, and it's it's kind of like once the trend continued, we kind of jumped on it, but there's also a need to feed that trend, if you like.
yeah,
So it's kind of both. And the feedback we're getting is that people really enjoy learning about it, right? So they're learning about these different aspects from, if I say, people at a similar age, particular men. And if I say particular men, actually our stats say that half of our listeners are female, or just under half, which is also great to see, because there's an interest, I say, in females to find out how are men doing in midlife, right?
yeah,
I see them buying the sports cars and getting the tattoos, but why are they doing it? What makes them tick? And so again, we're then in that sense almost trendsetters, right? So I think you can't just quite say you go that direction because there's a trend. We went that direction because we wanted to help people. That's
sure.
again, it's that common theme in my life to actually help people and support people. And if we can then, per se, make it a trend and actually make a difference, then that's important. Or at least for us, we always say on the podcast, if we can save one life, of if I say one middle-aged life, it doesn't have to be middle-aged, right? But men at 42 have the highest suicide rate in this country, right? So if you can save one life by putting a podcast on and getting people to talk, then our job is done. Then it was worth the effort. And if we can make that, if I say, almost into a bigger movement at some point, which if I say we have plans and ideas for, but we don't know yet. So if you ask me where's the podcast in 5 years' time, I have no idea. We have probably now close to 80 episodes recorded.
Wow.
We don't have them all published yet. We're going to have 60 published by the summer. We're on a trajectory to make it bigger, because we started doing meetups. What's next? If I say we don't know, there's definitely a book coming, so that's next on the agenda. Hopefully next year. I said that last year though, but it's finding the
Yeah.
time as well. And if we can help people, that's the main thing.
No, that's fantastic, and it sounds like that's something that's definitely driving you, not just an ability to
Yeah,
spot opportunity, but the deeper thing than that is a genuine need and wanting and willingness to help people. And wherever there is an opportunity to help people, obviously there is opportunity there, but it's recognizing that need first, isn't it? And then
yeah,
finding different ways to service that need. And then, as you say, with the podcast, momentum can then build and evolve and go in its own direction. Like you say, you don't know where it ends up. But if you are driven not by, oh, I want to have a successful podcast, but if you're driven by the underlying need and want and desire to help people in a specific area, then it's almost like the podcast is then a natural byproduct of that rather than the
yeah.
goal in itself, isn't
And to be honest, it's I'm going through a course at the moment called Outward Focus, and I don't get much from it, to be honest. And I think the reason is because I've always been outward focused. If I say I've always been, when I first finished uni, all I wanted to do is earn lots of money, which probably lots of people do, and it's natural. And maybe it's not, but it was for me.
it? Yeah.
And I think that has changed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still like to earn money, and good money, but the motivation behind it is different, as you just described, right? It's the underlying motivation is helping and supporting others, and that's the important thing for me. And I've in my sales career, I've noticed that by doing that, I had a better career because I didn't try to sell people things they didn't need, essentially,
Yeah.
right? So the typical hard sell. I mean, that's something I've never done. It was all about, how can I support someone else with a product that actually makes sense for them? And as a salesperson, you naturally have conversations where you go like, oh, I have this great product for you, and they go like, but we don't need it, and
Yeah.
then that's fine, right? And then you just walk on. So the motivation to sell more always came from, essentially helping others and making a difference to their lives.
Absolutely. And I think if you believe in the product, whatever that is, whether that is a product you're selling for
Yeah,
someone else or your own, or it is part of what you do, I think then you have to operate in that mode of abundance, don't you? So if this person doesn't need that particular help that product can deliver, then that's okay. There will be more people like them
yeah,
that that are not like them or are not like them as well. But there will be plenty more people where it is a good fit. And I think sometimes people, perhaps driven more by scarcity rather than abundance, and maybe they don't have true belief in their product, perhaps then don't operate from the best mindset because
yeah,
they're not truly convinced in the opportunity, in the value that they can deliver.
yeah. Absolutely correct. I mean, there's nothing worse than trying to sell something someone doesn't need, or you're not convinced. I mean, if you're not convinced in the product, you wouldn't want to sell it, right? You
Yeah,
wouldn't be able to sell it really. If you I don't know, if you're a typical car salesperson, I'm just using as an example because most people can probably relate to it. And if you're selling sports car and someone comes to you and wants to buy an SUV, you can turn upside down, right? You're probably not going to
yeah,
sell a car.
yeah, no, absolutely. But for people that are perhaps new to selling, perhaps
Yeah,
people that are new to consulting and are very good at what they do, but struggle to recognize and believe in the value that they can deliver. Do you have any advice to help them develop that confidence, which can be lacking, overcome that imposter syndrome,
yeah.
to put it another way?
I mean, overcoming imposter syndrome is that's a challenge in itself, right? I think, and again, a timely conversation I had with someone last night actually, who has been in his career similar to myself, just over 20 years, and he wants to move into a fractional career, and he goes like, "Volker, what do I have to offer?" Right? I've done sales for 20 years. I don't have
Yeah,
blueprints. I don't have this, that, and the other. And I mean, I didn't start and took half a year off and wrote lots of blueprints, right? Because as I would say with any startup, and that's the same when you're a one-man band, you build the plane whilst you're flying it, right? So
Yeah.
so I had my first client, and on the back of that, I built more of a blueprint and more of a story, and then you get your next client, and so on. Um, so my best advice is just jump straight in, just do what you always done. But I appreciate not everyone can do that, right? Because if you, as you mentioned, right, so if you're not from a sales background, you might want to have more of a product, So let's say you come from a product or more of a tech background,
Yeah.
and that's exactly why we put that course together, because you need to sit down and go, okay, what is my ICP? So what's my ideal customer profile? Who do I actually want to talk to? But before you do that, you need to understand what is it you're actually selling, right?
Yes.
So yes, you're selling yourself, but what is the value add you do, right? So let's say you have 20 years of sales, you can help a lot of people to sort out sales processes, or you're very specialized in, sales forecasting or revenue operations, or whatever the case might be. And then
Yeah.
you can carve out that bit. And the same is true for product or CTOs. So I work a lot with CTOs that want to go into, say their own company, and want to be a fractional CTO. And when they come to me and they go, Volker, what is my value proposition? So what have you built in the past, right? What products have you built? What technology have you worked with? What are the success stories you can tell? And once you start talking to people about it, you then, and that's true for any sales, to be honest. You start refining your storytelling a bit, right? Because you go in, and the first person you tell, oh, I sold lots of enterprise, 1 million plus deals, right?
Yeah.
And then the person might go like, oh, actually, we're looking for people that really sold really small deals. I had that case recently as well. And then you refine it, and you go into the next one. You go like, oh, I sold really small deals, right? And then that person goes like, yeah, but we want an enterprise seller. And you go like, oh,
Yeah.
if I start with that, it's not going to work, right? So you then tailor your story, that you go like, oh, I sold a variety of products. What kind of products do you sell? And then they go like, oh,
Yes.
our average value is, I don't know, 100,000. You're like, oh, that's actually my sweet spot. Once I've done enterprise sales and I've done the small deals, my sweet spot is here. And the same is true if you're CTO, right? Or CPO, or whatever. You don't go and go like, I know how to JavaScript. By the way, I don't know much about. If anyone's listening, go like, oh, JavaScript is so out of date. It might be, right? I have no idea. But let's say you don't go and go like, oh yes, this is what I'm programming.
Sure.
You find out first. What do they actually need? Can I meet those needs? Or let's say they need Java, but you're much better in developing in a different language. You go like, oh, actually, I would recommend something else, because, and then you're showing off your knowledge. And that's when they start, to your point earlier, that's when you start building the relationship and start building the trust. And that's when you start having the conversation. And then you can see, is there something I can support them with? Is there something I can add value to? And if so, how much do I charge for that value? Because that's the next step, right? How do you
Yeah.
commercialize yourself? Do you charge on a project base? You charge on a day rate, hourly rate? So there's so many different things how you can charge as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you were saying about, building the plane as you're flying it is so true. I've seen so many people think, oh, I'm going to offer consulting in this area. I need these blueprints, as you say. I'm now going to spend months developing it. And then
Yeah,
they do that and then find they don't know how to market it. They don't know how to sell it. Therefore, they don't actually get any customers on it. And they might think, oh, well, that didn't work. Well, no, you didn't really find out whether that works,
yeah,
because you spent all your time on delivery, when actually you just needed to engage with the market, have those conversations, and be driven by and led by the market. Because if you let the market drive you, then you'll develop something that is far better tailored to their needs, because you actually know what their needs are. You have a specific context,
yeah.
don't you, in which to try and build something.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of startups or individuals never get off the ground because they overplan, right? Because
Yeah.
they're sitting there and go like, oh, I need this, I need that, I need a website, and once that is all in place, I can go to market. No, you
Yeah.
go to market, and then you define your website, and you tell the story people want to hear. And it's, I know a lot of people that don't even bother with the website. I personally always think it's a nice business card to have online. But if you ever go to my website, it's it doesn't say a lot about what I offer. It's more generic. It gives you a good idea to say, okay, I want to be in touch. and that's deliberately, because otherwise I have to update it every 6 to
Yeah.
12 months, and I don't want to do that, to be honest. What's my new website for Natos? That's an executive coaching brand. Will have a lot more details, and it's a different concept of a website because it needs more explanation as well. But yeah, it depends obviously what you offer, but yeah, keep it lean and just go for it. I think it's the best advice here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are perhaps fearful of rejection, and again, based with a bit of a scarcity mindset as well. That, well, if I talk to 5 people and my idea is wrong, I might not get to talk to 5 people again. Therefore, it had better be right when I do. And in actual fact, there's so much opportunity out there, more than you could possibly service. So just start
Yeah,
engaging with people, and if you do it with the right intent, as you describe, based on helping people, then you'll find out A, whether you can help them or not, and B, what the best way could be for you to help them as well, won't you?
yeah, yeah, and I think you're right. It's just you need to have these conversations, and the market is big enough, right? So if I say that they're probably, I don't know how many fractional chief revenue officers are out there, right? And to say they come in all forms, shapes, and sizes, right? In terms of experience,
Yeah,
in terms of, to say I have a German accent, which gives me the advantage I can also sell in Germany because I'm German. Other people I don't know, might be French, right? They might be Swedish. Who knows, right? So
yeah,
everyone has a nuance. It doesn't have to be about language. It can be experience in terms of enterprise and startup sales or mid-market, different industries, and there's a big enough market for all of us. And, you know, I always joke they're all competitors. No, they're all friends, right? We all do the same thing. We all do it slightly different. And then it comes down to personality as well, right? When you hire, there will be people that don't like me, and so be it. I can't help
yeah,
who I am, and it's just the way it is.
absolutely. And I think as well, for you, I imagine from someone with that extensive sales experience, you are used to hearing no more than yes, and no doesn't mean how dare you offer me this product. It could never be right for anyone. It means actually, do you
Yeah,
know what? It's not right for me right now.
exactly. And you have to kiss a lot of frogs as well, right? Until you find out what works and what doesn't work. And you sometimes can have conversations over months or say even years, and then someone comes back and says, "Oh, as I always say to anyone, and who works for themselves, right? You never know where the next lead is coming from.
Yeah,
I had the straightforward ones from my network, and then I had 2 or 3 connections, and someone just called me and started working with me. It's just you just never know.
yeah, no, definitely. You just need to put yourself out there because you say you never
Yeah,
know the network effects that you can get. And I've had like posts on LinkedIn that have had no engagement whatsoever. Yeah,
yeah,
I've then had a direct message from someone saying, "I absolutely love your posts. Please keep them coming. Don't stop. Let's get on a call." And they're reading out like 3 of my posts that they've got open on their screen as we're having a conversation. They're selling themselves on what I offer, but
yeah,
you can't tell from those external things because like they didn't want to like it because they didn't want to be seen to like it because of their work situation. There could be any number of reasons why they didn't engage in the way that you thought they were going to, but that doesn't
yeah.
mean that people aren't listening and you're not adding value.
No, exactly. And I mean, social media is a blessing and a curse, right? So the blessing is we have, you know, we all, most of us have a network of people we can talk to and we can tap into, right? But the curse is we constantly have to be on social media. We constantly have to be out there, showcasing ourselves.
Yeah,
And, that can be quite tiresome, right? If you're trying to get work done. So I'm trying to minimize it, but I have to be out there and be seen. But as you say, right, and sometimes you don't get the engagement, but people are still seeing you. It's if I say in the classic marketing sense, it's branding. You constantly
yeah,
need to brand yourself. You need to put your own brand out there, and that's you, right? The brand Ballueder, right, or brand Todd,
yeah,
right? You put that brand out there, and that's what it is. And eventually someone goes like, oh, I like what this person is saying, right? And they will get in touch. And then when it comes to direct response, right?
yeah,
From a marketing perspective, it's the old inbound marketing strategy, right? But of course, it's crowded, right? How do you stand out? What's your speciality? What makes you different to anyone else?
Yeah, absolutely. It's developing that, as you say, based on the interactions you're having with people, and then trying to form a brand around it. And I like what you were saying earlier about actually for the leadership coaching, it is a different brand, rather than saying, well, actually, I do even more things than I did before. Actually, carving out a separate brand for it that stands for something slightly different for a different
Yeah.
audience is a useful thing to do, isn't it? And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what I guess why you chose to do that and what brand actually means to you.
It's a good question, right? And I don't know if it works. I can tell you, hopefully, in the next 6 to 12 months, if it works.
Yeah,
Um, I found so when I set up Ballueder Partners 5 years ago, I wanted to have a brand. As the name suggested, with partners, it's my name. And when I moved more, if I say when over the last few years, the coaching bit, I felt like it didn't really fit under Ballueder Partners. Ballueder Partners, for me at least, feels more like a B2B brand. It feels, going into companies, doing things for them.
yeah,
And, the sales coaching was there, but, again, it's very B2B focused. But I wanted to have a brand that was more, as I said earlier, person-centered, a little bit B2C. So individual coaching, leadership coaching, executive coaching, it's all about the person. Even if
yeah,
a company at the end of the day, starts paying. And, the natural next thing for me is to offer therapy through that brand, which I'm going to do, and then the leadership development, which I'm going to do, and maybe there are more services to come over the years. It's, maybe nutrition, but
yeah,
it's almost, I don't want to say it's a B2B and B2C brand, because that's not quite right. I think one is more for me a B2B brand in terms of me helping companies,
yes,
but the other one is more me helping individuals, and I
mm,
think that's a differentiation. Even if it's, both probably end up being B2B brands. And I just thought, I want to move away a little bit from, maybe just having my name out there. I think most people know my name, and it's just nice to have a new brand. So I bought all the swag already. So I bought some pens and stickers and
yeah.
posters, because I'm a bit geeky when it comes to that. But just,
No, well,
I just
why
like to
not?
have a new brand. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
and,
They're all
and it's a
tools
bit of
to get
fun
your
as
name out
well,
there.
right? It's a bit of fun as well to say, okay, I launched one brand, it's an established brand. I want to launch a different brand. I want to see how I can, differentiate from that. And it's the same when I changed my podcast, right? I didn't continue with, I tried to continue with one podcast, and change the topic a little bit, and it didn't sit right for me.
Yeah,
And I thought, I need a new brand, right? I need a new brand because it stands for something slightly different and slightly new. So, you can just, play with that a little bit as well.
yeah, and I think
People perceive it differently. Sorry.
they do, they perceive it differently, and I think it gives you, like, the brands have their own personalities, don't they? So it's almost like it gives you permission
Yeah.
to lean into those personalities that the different brands have. One might be more individual, less serious. One might be more formal than the other. One might be more playful. They
Yeah.
have their own kind of identities and traits, don't they, that you can lean into. And I think it gives you an excuse, a permission almost to lean into those different
Yeah.
traits of the different brands without having to worry about, oh, but how would someone over there think about this? How would someone over there think about it? If you do it in the context of those brands, then you can do more with them, I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, it's just an opportunity to slightly reposition, things that you offer, and make it, more more tailored to the audience you want to address as well.
Yeah.
Because again, you don't want to just have one website and then everyone on there. So I work, as an example, I worked with a startup. They had different audiences, and they just had one website, and there was literally like addressing everyone on one page, and they go, like,
Yes.
can't do that because it's too confusing, right? So you can just have it all nice. I mean, it's still the same company. It's all the same umbrella. I don't have two or three different companies and run those.
No.
No, it's just a brand. It's just a label.
Yeah, but it's
But
a
as you say,
perception,
it's
isn't it? As you
personal.
say, if you
Exactly.
have everything all in one place, how does someone know whether that's really for them or not? You've got to grab their
Yeah.
attention, and you've got to be as concise and as efficient and effective as possible in letting them know that you know exactly how to help people like them, and it is for them. And I think if you put too much on one place, it's hard to carry that off, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, they're really, really interesting. So yeah, thank you for sharing those insights on
No, of
brand. I
course.
definitely encourage any other consultants to think about how they are developing and applying their brand and what's driving them, as we've talked about as well.
Yeah.
But for you, I guess what does that path look like? What do you think success looks like for you, or is that an ever changing thing for you?
You asked me the question I asked on my podcast for 5 years, right? So,
Indeed, I had to bring it up.
of course. Um, good question. I think success, everyone defines success differently. So if I can build, a business and do what I enjoy doing, then, to say that's success for me. So if I can, in very basic terms, can make a living with what I enjoy, I'm happier. And that was one of the reasons why, I started the journey in the first place 5 years ago. I didn't want to be dependent on others defining what my career looks like and,
Yeah,
defining what my trajectory looks like. So I want to be in the driving seat, and that's what I really enjoy. And, that's why I turned down, people that asked me if I would want to work for them full time. And as long as I can continue driving that whilst, making a living, and as I said, right, maybe a pivot another 3 or 4 times over the next few years. I reckon I'm going to settle in something over the next 3 to 5 years where I'm going like, this is nice, steady, if I say income, it's a nice steady positioning.
yeah,
But to be honest, knowing me, in 5 years time, I'm going to go like, oh, yeah, I'm settled now. This is great. What am I going to do next, right? And then
indeed.
I'm going to find something new, because that's, if I say that's my nature, and that's probably something I maybe should have done straight out of uni. But most people go into, and I read a really interesting article on that, helping graduates to find out what they want to do. Most people go in and go like, oh, I need to go on this trajectory of this career, and
Yeah,
this is what success looks like. It's about earning lots of money, getting all those titles. And I wasn't different when I started. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but I learned over the years that that's, for me, is not success. Success is about, at least for me, I define this, being happy with what I do and being in charge of what I do. And a lot of people ask me, did you go self-employed because if I say you want to be in charge of your own time? And I'm like, it wasn't actually that. It wasn't for me that, oh, I can take a Friday afternoon off. As a
sure.
matter of fact, I probably work more than I've ever done before, but I enjoy what I'm doing. So I don't mind working, longer hours. And so for me, it was never about this
Mm.
flexibility. Having said that, I'm learning it more and more, and I'm learning to take more time off, which is also very important. And again, it's a journey as you move along, and yeah,
Yeah, no,
it's
I like that. I like what you were saying about flexibility, because I speak to a lot of people that say they want flexibility, but they don't really mean that when you ask them, okay, so what would that look like in practice? What would you do with that extra X number of hours? And say, well, I have no idea. I don't know. So actually, it's not really that you're
yeah,
missing that time. It's that you don't want to be that time to be out of your control. So you want to enjoy what you're doing and
yeah,
be able to make decisions about how you spend your time.
yeah. I think that's a good summary, because you as I say, for me, it was never about working less. I know for some people it's like, oh yeah, I can work less. It was always about, I'm in charge, right? No one can fire me, right?
Yeah,
I'm going into the project. Yes, if I do a shit job, then people fire me. But you
yeah,
know, and you don't get along with all the clients, and things happen. But generally, I've had the same job for 5 years. And had longer and shorter stints, and most projects worked out. Not all projects work out, because they never all do. And it's, and again, you learn from all of them, and you just move along. But I'm in the driving seat, right? And I can pivot, and
yeah,
I can change, and I can decide how I talk about the brand. And I don't need to go to anyone and go like, oh, by the way, I'm away next week. I don't know, next Wednesday I'm taking a day off.
yeah,
No, I don't need to ask about that. I just do it. And that's, to be honest, that's something I'm still learning, right? 5 years in, where I go like, actually, I can do that. I can just take some time off, and no
yeah.
one's going to miss me. And the whole self-care. aspect comes in. And it's that fun bit. I really enjoy the flexibility. But as I say, I probably work more than I've ever done before for any company, because I now enjoy more than ever what I'm actually doing.
No, that's amazing that you can find the things that enable you to be in that position. So no, that's really, really good to hear that. And I'd encourage other people to try and find out what that looks like for them. So
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that with us today, and I'll make sure I share links as well with to your different websites, to the different brands, as
thank
well
you,
as the Man Up and Down podcast that I'd encourage anyone to listen to as
thank you.
well. And yeah, I look forward to catching up a little bit later and finding out what it is that you're up to then.
Yeah, happy to come back and give you an update, because if I say I don't know where, I know the direction of travel, but who knows what I'm going to build next, right? That's what I find exciting, right? You just decide to go down different rabbit hole and explore things, and you never know what you find. But
You don't,
yeah,
and that's the fun thing, isn't it?
yeah. Thanks for having me, Matt.
No worries.
Really enjoyed
Awesome.
that.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed the conversation. And as I say, I look forward to finding out what you're up to and catching up again. But thank you very much.
Thank you.